Bobby Lee Claremont and the Criminal Element by Jeannie Mobley. Fulton, Kentucky, 7:33 p.m. "Watch time, young man, and don't go getting yourself into any more trouble, you hear?" the conductor said as I stepped down onto the platform at Fulton. "Yes, sir," I said meekly. I gestured to my small bag of possessions slung over my shoulder. "I'm just going to get cleaned up a little and come right back." The conductor nodded grudgingly. Of course he wanted me to stay on the train, but he couldn't object to me washing the bloody grime off my face and neck either. Besides, I didn't care what he thought. It was the last time I'd ever see him. I stretched as I stepped down onto the platform. It was evening, and the first few breaths of cool air felt good on my sweaty skin. Unlike Memphis, Fulton was a small town with a small, tidy depot, making it harder for me to disappear into a crowd. Colored ladies in pressed white uniforms stood with sandwich carts on the platform, ready to do a supper business, and I approached one, as an excuse to delay until more people had stepped down from the train and I could more easily blend in among them. Although neither the cop nor any of Mrs. O'Halloran's companions had made any move to get off the train, I knew I was being watched. I paid a nickel for a ham sandwich and a glass of cold milk. That left me with only 12 cents from my windfall back in Jackson. Enough to get me on to Louisville, where I'd find other sources of income. I drank the milk all at once and handed the glass back to the sandwich cart lady. Then I strolled casually into the station, nibbling the sandwich and mingling with the crowd. Inside the station, a corridor led two directions, with a sign pointing toward separate waiting rooms for colored and white folks. I headed toward the whites-only area. The room was clean and painted a cheerful, bright yellow. One wall was taken up by a ticket booth, the opposite wall by the bathrooms. A line sprawled out from the ticket windows. I didn't see how I could stand in that line to exchange my ticket without being seen. Of course, there was a chance no one would come looking, but I wasn't going to take any more chances if I could help it. I looked up at the big timetable on the wall. The train to Louisville departed 7 minutes after the train to Chicago. I could wait until the Chicago train was gone and then get my ticket for Louisville. All I had to do was find a place to hide myself from anybody who might drag me back onto the Chicago train before its departure. I went to the bathroom and washed up as I said I would. It felt good to get rid of the grime of my embarrassing encounter in Memphis. But the bathroom was too busy to be a hiding place. I couldn't stay there for the next half hour. I stepped out of the bathroom and nearly collided with Leon. He had a suitcase in either hand and was walking about 5 steps behind a well-dressed white lady en route for the street. "Leon," I said in surprise, "what are you doing here?" He glanced at the woman, then slowed his step. "Meet me over yonder behind those trolleys in 5 minutes," he whispered, then hurried to catch up to the woman before she noticed his delay. I looked in the direction he'd indicated. There was a phone booth on the wall beside the exit to the street. Next to it, a supply of baggage trolleys had been pushed into the corner. I walked toward them. Halfway across the room, I noticed Terence peeking around the corner of the trolleys, gesturing wildly to get my attention. I glanced around. I could see no sign of Kelly, Bugeaud, or anyone else keeping an eye on me, so I hurried to him. He crawled backward, and I followed, to find myself in a cozy little corner, hidden from view by the phone booth on one side and the trolleys across from the front. "Won't you get in trouble for being in here?" I asked Terence, glancing out at all the white folks. "Nah, Leon and me carry people's bags for tips, so they let us stay. White folks don't mind colored folks, long as we're working for 'em." I glanced around one more time before I sat down beside him. I didn't want Kelly or Bugeaud to find out Terence and Leon were helping me, but now it was more for the brothers' safety than anything else. I figured it was safe to talk to Terence there, though, where no one could see us. I would warn them to stay clear of Kelly, then we could go our separate ways. They could get back on the train for Chicago, and I would wait till they were gone, and then get my ticket for Louisville. It was perfect. "You don't look so good, Bobby Lee," Terence said, giving me the once-over. "You fall off the train or something?" "I got attacked by Brian Kelly. He's definitely dangerous, Terence. That's what I wanted to tell you and Leon." "I know," Terence said, his eyes all lit up with excitement, like it was still all a game. Just wait till we tell you what we found in... Listen, Terence, I said. Y'all have to stay away from him, you hear? You don't want to end up like Jimmy O'Halloran, do you? Terence grinned. I told you, Bobby Lee, gangsters don't scare me. I groaned. This wasn't going the way I wanted at all. Just then, Leon showed up, carrying a stack of sandwiches and a glass of milk, which he gave to Terence. At once, Terence began stuffing a sandwich into his mouth. I wondered how the kid could be so skinny the way he consumed food. Why didn't you come back to talk to us after Memphis like we agreed on? Asked Leon, giving me a narrow look. You thinking of trying to claim the whole reward for yourself, Bobby Lee? Course not, I said, annoyed that he would think I would betray him. I might not have known him long, and I might have been a thief and a liar, but I wasn't a double-crosser. I couldn't come talk to you because I've been watched every minute by the folks in that car. But listen, you have to be careful. That Kelly's willing to hurt anyone who interferes, and believe me, I learned it the hard way. He hurt me. He threatened Bugeaud. He even threatened Nanette O'Halloran, I said. Terence looked up from his sandwich. He better not hurt Miss Nettie, or I'll take him apart myself, he said fiercely, spraying crumbs with each word. I ain't surprised, Leon said. Not after what we found back in Memphis. He left that hanging. I admit, I left my mouth hanging too. What you found? I asked, dumbfounded. Terence giggled. We went through their luggage in the passenger car since you couldn't. But how? Simple. We told Chelton we'd keep an eye on things so he could step off and have a smoke, Leon said, grinning. It's against the rules for porters to smoke on duty, so he won't tell on us. I had to smile at their ingenuity. Apparently, I wasn't the only future criminal on the train. Well, I said. What did you find? I asked. Both Bugeaud and Kelly are toting heaters in their luggage, Leon said, his eyes glinting with excitement. My face must have registered confusion. That's what gangsters call their guns, Terence volunteered through a mouthful of half-chewed ham and bread. I know what heaters are, I snapped, but both of them are toting? That's right, but we found plenty more, Leon continued. Bugeaud has markers for horses. He laid down a whole heap of bets, and he had an accounts book for the Cajun Queen. Maybe he killed Jimmy over a bet. So Bugeaud was a gambling man. Was that what Malcolm had meant when he said Bugeaud was better at spending money than making it? I didn't know how it figured in, but I tucked the knowledge away in the back of my brain in case I needed it later. What about Kelly? Kelly didn't have much else, just a change of clothes, his toothbrush, aftershave, that kind of thing. His aftershave smelled mighty good, though, Terence said. See? He stuck his smooth little cheek up into my face so I could smell him. Not that he needed to. He reeked of the stuff. I had thought the smell was coming from one of the trolleys. I waved my hand in front of my face, trying to clear the air. If he gets a whiff of you, he'll know you've been in his bag. Seriously, Terence, he'll hurt you if he finds out. He won't find out, Terence said. No one pays attention to a couple little Negro boys like us. He won't know a thing. Hush up, Terence. I'm trying to tell Bobby Lee what else we found, Leon said, before turning back to me and continuing. Nanette has a copy of Jimmy's life insurance policy. It's worth $20,000 to his wife, or his mother if he wasn't married. I whistled. $20,000 would set a person up for life, sweet as anything. No wonder she was worried that folks might think she was only Jimmy's mistress. She had a letter, too, from Clovis Dupré, offering to take her back into the orchestra to travel with them around the country. It was written before Jimmy died, Leon said. Maybe she killed Jimmy so she could sing with the orchestra again and get that money. Take that back, Terence shouted. So suddenly Leon and I both jumped. I banged my bruised head on the handle of a trolley and bent over again in pain. Take it back. Miss Nettie wouldn't kill anyone. Granddaddy says she has the voice of an angel. Just 'cause she pretty and sings nice don't mean nothing, Terence, Leon said. She didn't want to go back to the orchestra. Clovis told me that much, I said, when the throbbing in my head subsided. But if she turned him down, I wonder why she's still got the letter. Maybe she's planning to go with him if the insurance company doesn't pay her. She has to make a living somehow, Leon said. I shook my head again. She wouldn't have to do that. She's half owner of the Cajun Queen, even if she doesn't get the insurance. Leon shrugged. All I know is the letter's in her bag. Along with some dirty diapers, Terence said, wrinkling his nose. They don't smell near so good as Mr. Kelly's aftershave. Leon rolled his eyes. What about the others? I asked, before Terence could go into any detail about the diapers. They ain't got much, Leon said. Malcolm Soames just got a clean shirt and drawers. No gun? It seemed strange that Bujo would be carrying a gun, but Malcolm, who was supposed to be his bodyguard, was not. Then again, Malcolm's gun was probably in his jacket pocket. Malcolm don't need a gun. He's got all them big muscles, Terence said, making fists and flexing his own spindly frame like a strong man on a circus poster. Eat your sandwiches, Terence. We got to get back on board soon, Leon said. And Sergeant Hayworth? He don't have a bag, or if he does, he took it with him. I remembered the sergeant getting off the train in Memphis, his hands in his pockets, giving me that smug nod as he walked by. I understood that nod better now. He had known there'd be a telegram waiting that could tell him the truth about me. No, the cop didn't take his bag with him. I guess he doesn't have one, so that's everybody, I said. Everybody except you, Terence said, grinning. You got a prayer book and a rosary. We didn't take you to be such a goody-goody, did we, Leon? My face flamed with embarrassment as my hand reached protectively across my small bag. I couldn't believe they'd gone through it. That hadn't been part of the bargain. You had no right, I said, my words stuttering out in my anger. Leon grinned too and held up a small tarnished silver locket by its chain. And you had this too. You got a sweetheart, Bobby Lee, or did you steal it? Give me that, I cried, trying to snatch it. Leon moved it just out of my reach. You sure it's yours? I lunged again. This time I caught it and pulled it away from him. It was my mother's, I said, closing my fist tight around it. The powerful longing I'd felt with Nanette and her baby burned through my palm where the locket pressed into it, as if it were a talisman of home. But it wasn't. It was only the last shred of a life that had never found the promised warmth of a real home because of the curse I'd put on it. Terence had been grinning at the game, but now his expression turned completely sober. Is your mama dead? He asked. I ignored him, opening my hand to make sure the locket was undamaged. If Leon had broken it, I planned to pound him good, even though he was bigger than me. We're sorry, Bobby Lee, Terence said. We didn't know. Our mama's dead, too. The locket was unharmed, but I still ignored Leon as he mumbled an apology. The train whistle blew. Come on, Terence, Leon said. It's time to get back on board. You coming, Bobby Lee? The train pulls out in 5 minutes. I'll be along in a minute, I lied. I should have tried one more time to convince them to stay away from Kelly, but I was too angry at Leon to care what happened to them. Leon shrugged, and gripping Terence by a fistful of shirt, he led the way back out of our hiding place. I did not follow. Instead, I scooted all the way back into the dusty corner and leaned against the wall of the phone booth, still burning with anger and embarrassment. If I had known anyone would go through my things, I wouldn't have brought the prayer book and rosary. I wasn't even sure why I had. They had been on the table beside my bed at the convent, and I had seen them as I was stuffing my few possessions into the bag. On a whim, I had thrown them in. I suppose I thought having them might make up for taking the money from the poor box. Or maybe I just wanted to have something more to my name than a ragged change of clothes and a broken comb. Either way, it was hardly something an aspiring criminal would carry with him. I slipped the locket safely into my pants pocket. Then I reached into my bag and took out the prayer book. Sister Mary Magdalene had given it to me as we had walked away from my mother's grave. I had never so much as opened it. It wasn't really much of a gift. The sister had a ready supply of them on hand to give out to fallen women and other sinners in the quarter. I opened the book. The binding gave a soft crack. On the inside of the cover, a slightly crooked stamp read, Compliments of the Sisters of Charitable Mercy, and below that their address and phone number. On the opposite page, Sister Mary Magdalene had written, To help you find your way in this difficult time. It gave me a little start. Had she known I would run away? No, of course she hadn't. She hadn't meant the words literally. I angrily tossed the book aside, then leaned my head against the phone booth, turning my ear toward it to protect the tender back of my skull. That's why I heard someone talking excitedly on the other side, in a loud voice necessary over a public line. The sharp Yankee accent caught my attention. I pricked up my ears, but the wood panel was too thick for me to hear clearly what was being said. I glanced around and saw the empty milk glass Terence had left behind. I picked it up and pressed the top to the wall of the phone booth and my ear to the base. "Of course, Mr. O'Banion, don't worry," Kelly was saying. He paused. "Because I've seen it. It's in her bag." He was silent for a few seconds. "That's right, 20,000, which should just about cover it. And she's got witnesses to help her get it." Another pause. "I'm telling you, by Chicago she'll be eaten out of our hand. She doesn't trust the others, or won't by the time we get there. Leave it to me. You'll get your money." The next time he stopped to listen, he chuckled. "Well, in that case, we've always got the partner. I don't think either of them will be a tough nut to crack. Don't worry, boss. One way or another, I'll take care of 'em." There was another short pause, and then the phone clicked down on the receiver. I cowered back as deep into the corner as I could and held my breath as the door of the phone booth opened and Kelly stepped out. I watched through the wheels of the carts as he walked back to the train, cocky as ever. My guts knotted up with dread as I watched. Mrs. O'Halloran, Nanette, was the nut he intended to crack. He was after her money, and he was making her suspicious of her true friends, if she had any. I don't know what this told me about Bugeaud, but I knew it meant that Kelly was up to no good where Nanette was concerned. I told myself how glad I was to be getting off the train, leaving all that behind. But I felt only anger boiling up instead of relief. Who did Kelly think he was, stealing Mrs. O'Halloran's insurance money and her chance at a happy home for herself and her baby? A ticket to Louisville was the answer to all my problems. I could start fresh. But what would happen to Nanette and her innocent little boy if I did? I glanced down at the prayer book. It had fallen open to the prayer of St. Jude, patron saint of hopeless causes. A sign from God, plain as day. I didn't know God was sending me signs now, when he knew that I hadn't been listening all that well these last 13 years, but there it was. I took a deep breath, scooped up the prayer book in my bag, and ran back to get on my train to Chicago.